Hi, this is the Loudest Crow. I'm Jonathan Louderback.
I'm Anthony Funke, or AJ.
I'm Justin Kroh, and we are here to caw through the noise.
You already messed it up. We have to start over.
In fact, we have to drive back to Springfield.
Ah, man.
Right? Go to sleep, wake up, and then we gotta restart the whole thing.
Do
It's
the
a
whole day
process.
routine, yeah.
Sometimes I wish I could do that. You know, like whenever you just do something so bad, you're like, damn it. Fuck.
Well, for me,
Just restart it all.
for me, it's usually with the really tiny things. Like the other day, I got some new jeans, or jean shorts.
And you didn't take me with you?
I did not. I'm sorry.
I am betrayed.
But I did
I
use
am
your
the
advice.
fashion guy.
I use your advice.
Okay. This is
And I picked out a couple outfits. They look really nice. Very dynamic too. I can wear it with lots of other things. And got some shorts. And really good price. But the lining in the pockets was a bit weird and had lots of little threads sticking out.
Yeah.
So I got some scissors. I was like, okay, gotta be really careful.
And you
because I
cut
don't
the
want to
pocket.
cut the pocket. So I cut the threads and I was like, oh, nice. And then got it and I was done. And I saw one more and I was like, it could be a little shorter. And while I was cutting it, I pushed my thumb into the pocket on accident and cut just a tiny bit of the pocket. And I know that over time that hole is just going to get bigger. And
just
bigger.
patch it now.
Yeah.
Like seriously, if you were to bring that to me at work, I could be like, hey, Lily, my tailor, could you just sew this? Just literally show it shut, and it will save you so much of a pain in the ass down the line.
I might actually do that.
No, 100% do it. I would 100%. That's one of the biggest benefits of working there. Just little tiny things that she'll do for free. Because it literally is if it's a good tailor, that would take 30 seconds.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It really isn't a hassle in the slightest. It just zoop, zoop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the way, I'll apologize in advance. I had a cold last week, and my voice has still not recovered for some reason, so I'll be a bit gravelly today.
That's okay.
Cold moment be
Now,
like.
speaking of being gravelly, I'm man, your beard's coming in pretty nice, especially in the sideburns. The sideburns have always been pretty good.
So,
You know?
about the beard, because it has been a few weeks since we've seen each other, I am going to be shaving it after this, sometime this week, because I like it. I like how it looks on me, but it is too patchy.
As I'll say, yeah, it's
Well, you know what you should do?
yeah.
What I will say this. If you have the time, go to a barber that does beards, and be like, could I make this look good?
Well-
As is. And then see. You know, there's nothing. If you shave it and then you can just shave the rest off.
Well, yeah, but I kind of just want to shave it anyway, just to go back to a more clean look. And then maybe after college, I'll try to grow it back in once it's a bit more full.
I've decided I'm going to be growing my beard out in the winter, every winter, and then shaving up during the summer. Just because something I've noticed about myself is I love freshness and variety so much.
Yeah.
That I can never stick with one thing for too long. But if I give myself a schedule,
Yeah.
you know. And I will say the beard is actually nice in the winter. It
It
literally has a
is.
purpose.
I don't think I could ever grow out my beard. Not only does it take super long, but Brooke hates the beard, or hates the hair.
Well, and with your current hairstyle, no, I would
Yeah,
not.
no,
I would not have
yeah.
your beard on you.
Have you seen Matthew Mercer? Because I know you're compared a lot to Matthew Mercer.
Yeah.
You have very similar hair, color and in texture.
And a slight similar facial features.
Yeah, similar
So,
enough
yeah,
for the comparison.
Yeah.
Have you seen him with his facial hair?
No.
It's pretty light, but it looks pretty. I think it looks pretty good. Because here's the thing that I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2 recently,
Ooh.
and I really have a fashion infected brain now. But I'm like, man, these guys are dripped up.
No, seriously though, I
I like Western, but not new Western.
yeah.
You know, which is big buckle,
Yeah.
extra jean, boot. You know what I mean? That's it. And then
Singular boot.
yeah,
Only
one big boot they put both their feet into and they hop along.
I feel like that would be some sort of weird futuristic prediction that from the 30s that somebody would draw out, because those really weird
Yeah.
predictions,
So one day we're all gonna hop around in big boots, and instead of having two gloves, we're gonna have 3 gloves. I don't know what will be the third one, but we'll get there
Well, the
when we get
nuclear
there.
war is going to cause us all to grow third hands.
Like Betrayal at House on the Hill, there's this one item called the meteorite, and whenever you get it, you have to roll a die, and you get a random mutation. I think it's hilarious because one of them is literally you grow really long arms. You can now go straight from the ground to the balcony because you can just reach it. I thought it was so funny.
Wait, you said the
bold
way
of
this is
them to
from
assume
something?
I'd be able to pull myself
Betrayal
up.
at House on the Hill is a board game.
Oh, the board game. Okay. Oh, that sounds really interesting.
It's a really cool game.
It's really
Basically, it's one of those games where it has a bunch of different games in one game.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is you discover the house, and then there's a betrayal that happens, and one or multiple players are the traitors, and they turn into the bad guys. And then suddenly goes from a cooperative game into a
Among Us.
Among Us.
Yeah,
but you don't know. There's not like an assigned imposter in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, it's just random.
Well, Betrayal at the House on Hill feels like, in my mind, it is the best. It is a board game that does the best job of feeling like a video game, right?
Yeah.
Because
it sounds like something that'd be in a video game.
Well, because it does the board game format really well, but it feels like a video game while you're playing it. But like the way it uses all the cards and the pieces and the dice and
And
stuff.
it has a lot of it's one of those games that accomplishes good complexity. You know what I mean? It's like there's some games that tack complexity on there, and you're just like, what the fuck is happening? Why is there so much going on that distracts from the vision? But it feels like every single role in the game pretty much contributes. Every piece has multiple uses depending on the thing. You know, it's like there's so much going on in terms of stats, in terms of all that sort of stuff. It all just makes sense.
Well, yeah, it's almost fully emergent. Like every time I've played Betrayal with a new person, they pick up on it really fast. And sometimes you might have to consult the rule book for weird edge cases and stuff. But overwhelmingly, it's a very good example of emergent complexity in a game. It's so good.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. Oh no.
Wow.
No, there's a stray string.
Hey, don't cut your pocket out.
That sucks. That's whatever.
No, but just get a seam ripper or some scissors and just snip it.
That's
Just don't pick at it.
Yeah.
That's the only bad thing that can happen in this
Just
situation.
pull it. Just
Your pants unravel.
in the middle of podcast in my underwear. Oh man,
That's funny.
So there was actually a point there. There was actually a little one of the points I wanted to bring up for the podcast, and it's something that came up fairly recently for me. That I was like, I'm really tired of people talking about this in this way. But it's about Overwatch 2, and it's about the random, or not the random, but the big stuff that's been happening with it dying. The esports of it is dying, and monetization is crap, and everyone's thinking, oh god, Overwatch has gotten the shit, and I don't see that. I see it as it's naturally dying, but everyone's blaming monetization for it, and I'm just guys, the game was never about the monetization. Yeah, if you didn't like the changes it made when the sequel came out with the actual multiplayer, that's different. But everyone's pointing fingers at oh, the battle pass sucks. Oh, the campaign doesn't exist, and they're doing all these weird $15 DLCs. Fuck this shit. You know, and I'm just guys, it's still Overwatch. If you liked Overwatch 1 and you liked the changes they made to the actual mechanics, you can still play that. And the new characters come out still. And I don't play it as much anymore. I haven't touched it in a while. But that's just because I don't have an incentive anymore to play just play multiplayer games. So whenever a new character comes out, I'll play it, unlock it, then I'll step off.
I get what you mean. It's I think that's the answer, right? It's why play Overwatch right now? What? Because whenever it's a live service game, you have to analyze the game, unfortunately, from the perspective of all live service games.
Yeah.
And compare it, because at that point it's stepping into that arena.
Yeah.
And I think as a live service title, Overwatch has failed because what it did in 2016. Are you cold, by the way? Grab you a blanket.
Oh no, I was cold because I'm holding on to it.
Fair enough.
Thing full of ice.
But in 2016, I hear this all the time. A lot of people popped onto the game that got Game of the Year because it was something special. It really was. The Blizzard magic into the Team Fortress 2 team shooter formula was awesome. So much personality. There was so much unique about the characters. You know, the play of the game system was incredible, innovative, iconic. But what have they really done since then? They've really just kind of leaned on the formula they built, and it's kind of stale.
Yeah, I mean,
and then Overwatch 2 is meant to be this big revamping.
Yeah.
And then, it fucking sucked.
As someone who hasn't played,
I mean, in the context of what it should have been.
Well, yeah.
Especially since they decided not to release the campaign.
What they were going to do with it, it sucks in comparison.
Yes.
But I guess my whole thing is it's still the same game.
Well, yeah, but that's the issue.
Yeah.
That is the issue.
That people don't like this game.
I was about to say, as someone who has not played very much Overwatch, but was at least aware of it and saw a little bit of it, I didn't notice any big differences between Overwatch and Overwatch 2 at all. Now, I'm sure people who spend a lot of time with the game will pick up on the differences way more than I could. But I think a good tell of if a game is truly innovated is, can people who are vaguely familiar with the game tell a difference between the first and the second iteration? Take Portal, for example. When I first saw I went to a friend's house before I got Portal 2 for myself. And I saw huge differences between Portal and Portal 2 in terms of graphics. Portal 2 had a much bigger scope. They had its own level editor, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Right? Because that got popular before the games that let you build levels got super popular, like nowadays. And so I think Valve really, with almost all their games, does a really good job of innovating between titles. And people will complain, like, oh, Valve, they don't do, like, third iterations on things. And I think that's a good thing, because I'd rather have, like, the first game that establishes the core concept in a cool way, the second game that turns it up to 11, and then that's it. What do you need after that? Unless there's, like, some other huge avenue you can take to innovate. I think having the first game to test the concept and prove it, and then having the second game to elevate it as much as you can, is a good formula to have for game development.
I definitely have noticed that about Valve in particular, and I think it's an interesting contrast to Overwatch in particular, because they seem to only release games nowadays whenever there is something new to explore in the conceptual video game space. They're pioneers.
Yeah.
Like, they released Half-Life Alyx pretty much on a dime because they're like, oh, VR is cool, let's play with it.
Yeah, and they did some crazy stuff.
They did some crazy fucking cool stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason people are frustrated with Overwatch is because what was a really innovative, polished game has turned into, in many people's eyes, like, why do people dislike Paladins but like Overwatch? Right?
Wait, say it again?
Paladins. Remember
like
Paladins?
They disliked it?
They dislike Paladins.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
because Paladins,
yeah.
you know, it just had that freemium feel, and Overwatch more and more is being to have it, even though they still have that patented artistic polish.
Yeah.
Like, the characters look great, the music is awesome, the levels look great.
Yeah.
It's like, but where's the meat?
Yeah.
You know, where's the substance here?
Well, like, I guess, like, what I'm seeing it is, like, I'm trying to think here. Like, the substance is, like, I get the whole idea of it not having new substance because
Yes.
that's a sequel, but also, it feels like I feel like it's people being disappointed over the hype to another extreme. Like, it being,
Too
like,
much of an extreme?
too much of an extreme, because it's like, when people say, like, when you say, like, where's the meat of it, it's like I was mentioning earlier, yeah, like you say, it might be stale and maybe the same, but the meat is still there. And, like, the only thing that's missing that people are complaining about, aside from the campaign, is cosmetics. And then it's just like, did you guys really, like, care that much about cosmetics?
Yes, because here's the truth of it. Most people, like, if you were to analyze 1,000 career profiles that are open,
Yeah.
you're a bitch if you don't have an open career profile. That's a pet peeve of mine. But how many of those play competitive?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not saying everyone needs to play competitive, but the truth is most people aren't playing the game as this, because I love the game so much because it had a really interesting first-person, like, competitive, like, setup.
Yeah.
Right? But how many people hop on Overwatch and play Mystery Heroes?
I mean, I don't know.
So many.
Yeah.
So freaking many. Because that's what it did really good. Overwatch was one of those first real games that kind of merged a hardcore FPS crowd of sweaty tryhard nerds, and then their Animal Crossing playing partners.
Yeah.
You know, and then those people eventually got kind of merged into this realm. Like, I remember hearing it was a FPS MOBA. And hold this for a bit. Just hold it. It's warm.
Oh, yes, thank you. Oh, I see what you're doing now. Yeah.
But and no matter what you do, because here's what's really fun about this conversation is that having been in the crowd of Overwatch because even I got in fairly late, like probably 2017, 2018 is whenever I started playing. Probably late 2017. Well, actually, I think I probably played late 2016. But I digress. Even being in the bit later as I was, but I've played for long enough now that I've seen, for literally the entire existence of the game, people have been saying, it's dead, it's dying, it's a dying game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, for a long time, it's never felt true.
Yeah.
It's felt like, you know, whinging and complaining. And now I'm getting to a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of starting to feel it.
Yeah, like,
you know?
It feels like it's a dying game, but to me, it feels like it's a natural death. It doesn't feel like people are like, probably here. A lot of people are saying that it's Blizzard killing the game. I think they just aren't trying to rejuvenate.
They're not. I think that's a fair way of putting it. Like, it's not on life support.
Yeah.
And people are sad about that. You know, like, being a live service game, life support, you have to continue. That's what's so difficult about a live service game. It's great. I love being able to stick with the game and really get to the freaking bones of it, you know, from the long way of playing. But that's not the way every game has to be played. And I think that's what people, like, in the current ecosystem are like, I want a game that I can sink 200 hours into. But it's like, that shouldn't be the only way to play a game.
Yeah.
Right? Video games are such a diverse medium. Like, I remember deeply enjoying, like, my first game I ever beat was Call of Duty World at War. That's like a 6-8 hour campaign.
Oh yeah.
You know, especially if you're decent. And I still enjoyed that greatly.
Yeah, no, especially like now that we're all like growing up and like have other things to worry about. For us, it's like I have like 5 different games that I've been wanting to play, and I've been playing them incrementally throughout it. But one of them's like God of War Ragnarok, and if you've ever seen anything of God of War Ragnarok, I think I've put well into like 6, maybe. Oh no, actually, I think I've put like almost like 10 hours in the game so far, and I'm not even halfway through it, and I'm just like I'm not playing it religiously. I'm only playing it whenever I have free time and like I have my own alone time. But
it gets fewer and far between.
Yeah,
it really does. But coming from, and that's a really interesting point too. It's like coming from being a gamer person from in your youth, where you would literally. I remember I on some Saturdays I would wake up, I would play video games, and then I would go to sleep. Like that's actually how it ended up working out.
Yeah.
Nowadays that doesn't happen as often, but that's okay.
Yeah. Like I like there is part of me that does miss the days where I could just come home from school, veg out, play video games, go to bed, then go back to school.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Homework.
I mean, like, yeah, I would do that, but like
I wouldn't. No, straight up. Like I not until I didn't do homework till high school.
Yeah, because like I mean, with how middle school works, it's like for you to fail, your parents had to physically go to the office and be like, "Hey, failed my student or my kid," and they're like, "All right." I mean, we don't mind holding them for another year.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, man, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's freaking wild.
But yeah.
No, I do think because we were actually talking about getting into game development with each other at some point, since we're both like actually like. No offense to you, John.
No, I get it. I'm an ideas guy.
We have like the programming experience, and we're getting there now. We're getting used to using game engines and whatnot. And like the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, I would at this point in my life anyway, and at this point, like probably with the climate of the game industry, I would much rather play a really concise, tightly made 3-hour game than like some game that has a lot of replay value for like 200 hours, but it's just kind of loosey goosey or maintained by the presence of other people.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed like single player games were like all that was around, so those got super popular. Then multiplayer games started getting really popular. And stayed popular until like the late 2010s. But now I think I'm starting to see a trend of single player games like kind of having a resurgence in popularity.
Oh, I think it's funny because I think it was EA, one CEO at EA at like an E3 meeting or something like that. I think it was I think he commented on single player games. He was like, single player games are dying. Single player games don't exist, or like they're dead. The multiplayer games are the way to go now. And then it just caused like a huge outcry of like, you're dumb.
Here's the thing: there's always going to be a massive group of people that wants to play single player games. But the truth is, for the money men.
Yeah.
That multiplayer games aren't the way. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's the reason why live service is such a thing.
I give Randy some shit about it. I tell her she has spent more money on Overwatch 2 than she ever spent on Overwatch 1 on skins.
Well, if you're wanting to go like the super money route, just make a mobile game. Free to play mobile game. Throw some ads in there. Lots of you have to have some like in-game currency.
Yeah.
And then you're set, right? And like I've been tempted at times to just make a mobile game and be like, this is probably easy money.
Time to siphon money out of little kids.
Yeah. And like
the way to do it is to make a Roblox game.
And it genuinely works. The thing, like my mom, she discovered this game called like Merge Mansion on her phone, and she plays it religiously. She has like 2 or 3 phones that she's kept over the years, and like when she runs out of like coins or attempts or turns or something on one phone, she'll blow the other and just play it more. Like she's not even playing it to get the things; she's just playing it to spend time in the game.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, what?
Yeah,
it's crazy how addictive those things can be.
I miss the day. Like I don't blame anything else for it for the most part. I only blame like my own attitude and how like I go about video games now. But I miss when I could just play a multiplayer game to play a multiplayer game. Like I mentioned earlier, like I don't play Overwatch that much anymore because I don't have an incentive. That's how it is for any multiplayer game I play. It's like, unless there's something for me to shoot for, I lose interest quickly.
Well, it's really funny you say that. I remember I played Overwatch religiously. You know, I really hit that competitive grind, and I had this goal. I was going to hit diamond, and it took me years. It took me 2 years. I finally hit it. I stayed up for a literal 26-hour period, grinded all night, made 2 pots of coffee, grinded tank whenever it was just open queue and there was no roll queue yet. I hit diamond. I had this deep feeling of emptiness, you know, because I did enjoy playing the game, but because here's the thing that's there's this initial phase whenever you're playing a multiplayer game where that emergent gameplay from other players is so fresh, and new, but it gets to a point where unless you absolutely love the formula, that can only support you for so long. It's the intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation that we've talked extensively about, in Minecraft.
Yeah.
You know, for extrinsically motivated people, it's you have to make those goals reachable and you have to make them meaningful. It's something I've heard people complain about a lot. It's in Overwatch in particular, is what is the big reward for besides being able to say you're a higher rank? What is the biggest reward? It's competitive points for golden guns. But for anyone who's even played, people who have been in bronze but have played since 2016 have 6-8 golden guns by now because you just get points.
Yeah.
Right. So it's what's the point?
That's why I only ever really play now whenever there's a new character. It's I just I don't know, I can't just have fun with the gameplay anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. One of the reasons I think Minecraft took off and got so popular is because it's easier to make an intrinsic goal in Minecraft, I'd say, because that's what the game's designed to help you do. In Overwatch, what's your goal going to be? Kill people? Kill more people? Kill even more people? Kill people with a different weapon? Kill people with a different class? In Minecraft, build a castle, build a farm, build an auto smelter, build it. Minecraft just has so many different types of goals you can do, which is why I think it stood the test of time.
I recently got really into Zomboid, Project Zomboid, and I think that is probably one of my favorite games of all time now because I kind of framed it like this. I love being a problem solver in games. And for Overwatch, for me, my biggest thing is how do I get to do this? How do I do this? How do I get better at the game? Whenever you enter a game like Project Zomboid, your first 10 hours, you're just going to repeatedly die.
Yeah.
And you're I want to last one night. I want to last 2 nights. Okay, the water shut off. How do I get water? And it constantly is presenting you with these naturally logical and occurring situations that you have to problem solve or you die.
Yeah.
And it's riveting. It's so good.
That's actually why I've spent copious amount of hours in auto factory games. I haven't played in a bit. I'm kind of waiting for the next early access update to come out, but Satisfactory. Yeah. I have got over 3,000 or something hours on it, and it's just you walking around and being all right, time to automate this item, then this item, then this item. Now I get to unlock this thing, and I get to automate this. I get to automate this. I get to automate this.
No, Factorio is crack. Because what it does is it's it gives you you are present in every single problem you solve from beginning to end, and then you get to look back on the problems you solved. And whereas Minecraft, where it's okay, I want to build a castle. It's that's a big ass project. Whereas in those types of games, it's I build this machine for 10 hours, and suddenly you have a factory.
Yeah.
And you get to look back on the works that you've done. You're holy shit, I did all that.
Yeah, no. I remember my first full-fledged save on it. I just stepped back and I looked at this spaghetti of just conveyor belts, and I'm just wow.
You were present in every single part of that, but you look back at the whole, and you're that doesn't. I almost don't recognize it.
See, that's why Minecraft's so magical, because it's on a block by block basis. Even the designers have talked about Minecraft has to stay block by block, piece by piece. The player has to be fully involved with every part of the construction that they're doing. So that's why they're never going to add something in survival anyway, where it's just place 1 million blocks with one click, or fill a whole area with this, or do that, right?
Yeah, and with something like Satisfactory, and then something that Factorio didn't have, is it doesn't just have the factory building, but it also has the exploration. Because that's the reason why I go it's basically if Factorio was Subnautica, because it has a whole 3D world, and you just explore, and then you find random shit, and there's it's a big map, but
it's manageable.
It's manageable, but the thing is that it's super dense. There is things everywhere that you could go to it. So it's you're bored, go explore that way. Maybe you'll find what we have. They have slugs, and you crush them into little pills, and it helps you it helps production go faster. Yeah, these big slugs, and you just crush them down into pills.
I was experiencing a very similar thing with Red Dead. And what's so interesting about Red Dead in particular is that it's a game because like you're so used to video games having fantastical sci-fi or fantasy elements.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just like this is cool because it's unique, it's special, it's not normal. Red Dead is one of those games where it's like feasibly, except for like the mass amounts of people that you kill. Right, that's not the numbers are a bit bloated there, but basically everything else that you do in that game is just like something you could literally go out into the world and do.
Yeah.
Shoot people.
I mean, well, you know what I mean, though. It's like okay,
drag somebody with my horse on a.
You want to go hunt a bear? Go hunt a bear. It really kind of it's like kind of like in a way, like the studio because I've never understood why there are like cowboy aboos out there. Like people who like love like kind of love that. But like games like that make me understand the magic behind the mundane. It's got like I compare it to a Studio Ghibli film.
Yeah, that's
where it's like I never really understood why people romanticize the American frontier spirit so much until you kind of see it and laid out in front of you like that. I never really understood why people hunted or why people did all those sort of things. And then you watch it and you're like, whoa! Like I've recently been getting back into poker because I played poker and I'm like, that's a lot of fun. It is crazy fun just to have. Just to have a little bit of money on the table. It doesn't have to be anything major.
Well, because I see poker like more than anything as like a party game because you're trying to strategize around the social environment that you're in with the people playing it. Actually, I watched a video documentary of it was Telltale's like poker night game where like they just had like random characters. You had like Heavy from Team Fortress 2. You had like Max, I think it was from Sam and Max. You had like some other dude that I didn't even recognize, and then you had what's his name from like the Macho Libre looking guy.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, though. Is that like the Flash game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say this sounds so familiar.
I've seen it.
I don't remember it at all.
But like just look, you can look up the documentaries about Telltale Poker Night, and it was just so interesting because like I was just talking about the game, and it was very cheap, very simple. It was more of like a tech showcase than anything else, but it was loved by fans because it's just so fun it's so fun for character writing and that can be extended to just like real life social situations. It's just really fun to see people trying to deceive one another while also trying to talk each other up while also trying to strategize and play a game and like assess risk versus reward and stuff like that.
It's like poker, like I look at competitive poker and it's kind of fun to watch as like a novelty, but it loses all the magic because poker it's one of those games that's really fun whenever you're not playing with masters. Yeah. You know what I mean? Same with chess, in my opinion. Because because it's like chess. Whenever you're playing against other people who are masters, it's not about because like whenever you're playing against somebody who's like at your level, it's like who makes the mistake first.
Yeah.
Which can be unfun in its own way, but it also leads to more interesting scenarios. Once you get good enough at chess, though, it's like okay, if you make one mistake, you're dead.
Yeah.
Like the whole game falls apart. Like me and Elijah whenever we play chess, if I lose this pawn there, I'm like okay, fuck, I'm gonna resign.
Yeah.
Because the game's over.
Yeah.
It's like that in poker in the sense where it's like, at poker, you can like it's a high skill, high luck game where it's all about what you get, but then you're supposed to play that hand the best you can. But like in a group of people who are maybe novice to intermediate players, it's like okay, you have an offsuit 2-7, which is the worst hand in poker. You can still work that if you're charismatic enough or talkative enough, and you're good enough at poker. Whereas like, you're sitting on one of those tables, those master tables. It's just like fold.
Yeah.
Why would you play that?
Well, if you're sitting with masters, they take one look at your face and are like, King of Diamonds, Seven of Spades.
Yeah.
And they're just like,
yeah.
But more than that, it's not that they know what you're playing. It's that there's a high incentive to not play something that might not win, and it's less a game of bluffing and more like it's interesting in its own right, and I can understand why people enjoy it. But it takes a lot of that like just raw fun factor out of being silly, going all in and bluffing and getting lucky.
And I think the best part about it is how it's on a card by card basis, where you can like, as the cards are played, you can see how people bet if they go up or go down. Try to look for patterns and be like, okay, you got more confident here, or he felt more confident in bluffing here, and but then once the 3 was played, he bet even more. But there's no way he has a 3 based on what he bet previously, so he's totally bluffing now. And like I love that part of it too.
Yeah,
it's like a social strategy game as opposed to like strategically moving pieces or something.
Yes. Poker's it's a special game.
Which is honestly kind of like what like I was just thinking of like Jackbox. Like Quiplash is a social strategy game because they're trying to predict what will make people laugh.
Yeah, it's not what you think is fun.
Yeah, it's what other people think is funny.
Yeah, because we all had that moment where, like, in Cards Against Humanity, you're like, ha! And there's just...
They just like put it in a separate pile from everything else, and you're like...
and you have to, like, try, or, like... And it's one of those games, too, and I try not to do this because I don't enjoy doing it, but you can gas up your own card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh, that's so good! You know, or you have to, like, pretend not to like it because, you know, you don't want them to know it's yours.
Yeah. No, with the poker thing, though, my dad actually, back where we used to live, you know, I was, like, in the middle of nowhere, and, like, in the woods, and I had some, like, we had neighbors that were, like, a little bit of a walk, but we had, like, we all knew them quite well, and, whenever summer would hit, they would, my dad would always go to one of our neighbors' house, and so all the other neighbors would meet up there, and they'd have, like, they go to the guest house, and they'd all have a poker night. And it was like every Sunday night, I think, every weekend, or every Sunday night over the summer, and they would be betting real money. But I mean, they just play it super casually, and they just do that every summer. And it's just like it was like a routine.
Yeah, because it's less about like because like I had a poker night here recently, and I want to do it again.
Yeah.
And have like maybe rotating guests because that sounds fun. But we played with $5.
Yeah.
You know, and I lost. I lost big. I lost $250. I lost 50% of what I put down, but I had a great time.
Yeah.
You know. Because as long as you're not betting like your fucking mortgage, I think you're gonna be okay.
I'm gonna bet my car.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Don't you know take food out of your own mouth to play poker, but like
yeah.
That's because like I wanted to have that fancy poker party a long time ago.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't do it is because no one really wanted to put money down. I'm like, well, that's like
the whole point.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of people are like, especially in this point in our lives, we're a lot like tight on money.
Oh, for sure. But here's what gets me, right? It's like, I'm like, okay, let's have a $10 or $20 pot.
Uh-huh.
Or something like that. It's like, oh, that's a little tight. Randy said that, but then she buys a $20 Moira skin on Overwatch. You know what I mean? And I get it, because what the real message I'm getting is, and I understand it entirely, is that, well, I don't want to spend my money on that, because that doesn't sound like a good use. Like, I don't think I'd get as entertainment out of that money.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
You know, I get that. I'm not disparaging anyone for that. But like whenever I had that, I was getting that party together. It's like, okay, and you know, I think Taryn's still a little miffed at me about it. It's like, okay, I want to have a fancy poker party. We'll put down some money, and everyone's like, I don't want to dress fancy, and I don't want to put any money. I'm like, well, that's the whole fucking idea. You know, that's the thing.
Well, at that point, it's just a hangout.
Yes.
Well, and like when you keep money low, like say like max bet $10, or not max bet but everyone comes with $10. Yeah. You know, with stuff like that, I'm thinking to myself, even if you lose all of it, you spent $10 to have a really fun night with
Exactly.
friends,
That's
right?
my thought process.
Like,
too.
if you're going to Vegas, like, it's not worth it to spend potentially $100,000 on a fun night.
Yeah, but
right?
you walk in, you say, I'm going to spend like at max, right? Mm-hmm. If you plan for it, it's like I'm going to drop $500 to $1,000 if that's like your vacation, but you don't go over that.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is you decide your money will be. Like, as long as you're like, I'm doing this to have fun, possibly to win, but not really. I'm doing it to see the bright lights and flashing colors.
Yeah.
For this amount of money. It's almost like paying a ticket price.
If it was like all friends going out to go to like a casino or something like that, I feel like that'd be different.
Yeah.
I feel like to them that they are also weighing the thing of like, to them it almost felt like, oh, I'm just paying $10 to have a card game night with friends. When it's like I could have that exact same thing without having to pay any money.
And I get that.
Yeah.
And I totally. That's kind of why the idea kind of died in the cradle, so to speak. But to me too, it's like I think a lot of people have never played poker, had never done that. Yeah. It's like, you know, whenever we all played, because I got Randy into it too, and she's like, yeah, because whenever you play poker with no money, then silly shit happens, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna go all in on this offsuit 2-7 because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Why would I care? Why would I play conservative? Because while you want fun things to happen, you don't want it to be just outrageously silly.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like playing a D&D game, and everyone brings a joke character.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, okay, so you're Billy the Clown, and you're a drag queen, and you're Santa Claus. That's a party right there. You know what I mean?
No, I actually, I've been trying to start a little thing with actually, how okay are we with like name dropping? Like, I know you could say Randy, but like it's like first name, last name too.
Is like a negative name drop?
No, it's a positive name drop.
Okay. Then
Okay. But I've been trying to do a routine with Elijah Stagg. You remember Elijah Stagg?
Vaguely.
Do you remember Elijah Stagg? Do you know him at all?
Very vaguely.
Okay. Well, he's more of a friend of mine and Seth Frisbee, and
Wait, is he the one that goes to trying to remember it. Like at S&T.
No.
Where'd you go?
I don't think he goes to a college.
Oh, I guess that's not the one I'm thinking.
But he works at Walmart.
So I don't know. I don't think I know him, but go on.
But anyways, I've been trying to do like a little routine with him where it's kind of like that. We can't do it every Sunday because it's a very long thing. But I'm trying to make a process of doing it every other Sunday on over the summer, where I go to his house and we play the tabletop Warhammer, and like I just come over and he comes over after I come over after he gets back from work, and then we just like I choose one of the armies that he has because he has like a shitload of Warhammer figures. I mean, he is still collecting them because he just has a huge passion for it. I mean,
dude,
that
is one of those hobbies that like I went crazy. I haven't painted them all yet. I still do. I have a decent selection of Imperial Guard, and like I haven't painted them yet. Like it's so easy just to be like, I want to buy that because they're cool.
Yeah.
They're cool, dude.
But that's what he does. He actually goes in and like paints them, and like doesn't just paint them. He adds like foliage to like the bases.
Yeah, so
and, like
he's a hobbyist for sure.
Yeah,
He's into it.
Like
there's a Warhammer store in town now.
Oh really?
Did you hear that?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, there's an actual Warhammer store. Do you know National and Battlefield? Right where that you know that the Asian food store,
yes,
the restaurant in the mall?
Yeah.
And their physical location they have outside the mall?
Yeah.
Right next to that.
Really?
Yes.
Dude, I was gonna say I should tell Elijah about that, but I feel like he already knows.
He probably already knows.
Yeah.
I imagine he does.
But anyways, we came over. Brooke and I came over because Brooke wanted to hang out with us while we did it. We come over. I think obviously it wasn't yesterday. It was the prior Sunday, and we planned it out. He set up the whole thing in advance. And so I just chose the army I wanted, and we played.
What did you play? Did you play Necrons?
I did not play Necrons because he doesn't have any Necrons.
What are
they all worship a specific kind of
Chaos God?
Alien, maybe, but it's like the alien looks like it's very reminiscent of the aliens from Alien.
Tau?
Not Tau.
Oh, the aliens from Tyranids.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's a Tyranid.
But like they have
they're like a hive mind sort of situation.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
but they have the aliens, and then they also have humans that kind of like worship.
Yeah, the Gene Stealer cult.
That's it. Yeah. So yeah, you're
Listen,
right.
I know my Warhammer. I just don't play it as much as I want to, and that partially is because, and not disparaging them or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I took Randy because I really want to get into it with Randy, and I think Randy still likes it.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to a Warhammer night at Metagames, and it's still a very much boys' club, and the older type of guy who does it. Because it's kind of like the way it's kind of like it attracts a certain type of person sometimes, Warhammer does. It's like very, like I think there are people out there who are like, oh yeah, the Imperium of Man is based, and that's not the message at all.
Yeah, no, it's not,
you
yeah.
kind of get what I mean. That type of, but I think it's definitely something. It's so cool though. Warhammer is so fucking cool.
Oh yeah,
I could spend so much money on those figures.
No, Warhammer's I've known it ever since I was a little kid because my brother showed it to me, and he showed me the Warhammer video game, the one that introduced the Necrons into the video games, and I don't know, like I got interested in it, and then I got invested in it.
Would you be interested? Just feel free to say no. There's a trend in the community called like box sharing. Where it's like, like they'll have those starter kit boxes where you can get two armies.
Oh.
We could buy one together and split the box.
That'd be fun.
If you ever want to do that.
That would be fun.
Because it'd be a great deal. It'd be a great way to get into it.
Yes, it would be.
If you ever want to do that, just hit me up because I have it so down.
Well, I obviously am going to want the Necrons.
Well, yeah, but there's a Necron starting box right now that has Space Marines in it.
All right, cool.
I think.
Well, and you mentioned the whole boys club thing. That makes me like, because I've been thinking about this recently just because of who I hang out with and what I do when I'm spending time with them. And I'm like, it's weird how many of the things this friend group does that are like, geared at, males. And it's weird to think about how there's so many of these hobbies that like are like very dominantly male things to do. And it's like, how much of that is social? How much of that is just like girls just prefer certain things over others?
I think most of it's social. And to be honest with you, I think case in point is Randy. Like that box, that I think that she moved them upstairs. So she's like, okay, I brought my Xbox One and my Xbox games that I collected over time just in case we don't have internet. And she pulls them out. It's like, I'm expecting some other stuff. But she had fucking Assassin's Creed, Halo 3, Call of Duty. I'm like, those are my games. Those are my video games. Because she was very much raised, I hesitate to say boyishly, but she wasn't like raised as a traditional girly girl. She went hunting with her dad. Yeah. She rode BMX, she rode four-wheelers and shit.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. A lot of this is like, a lot of it is the social aspect of it. A lot of it is just the community that gets built around it and whether or not, how affected you are by the community. Because, for example, the Warhammer thing, like you're saying it attracts a certain group of people. Like, I know what you're talking about. It's those people who, like, there's the side of Warhammer of the people who are like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool, and like I would never want to obviously be like them, but it's still kind of cool, to the people who like almost kind of personify their ideology, like the identity, and it's just like because they don't realize that it's taken ironically almost.
Well, it's kind of meant to be like comically dystopian.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be but so there's some people who almost too much identify with some like the space marine ideology and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's like the mankind is not the good guys. No one's the good guys. That's
nobody.
The point.
They're all bad.
They're all bad.
And I feel like the reason why something like Warhammer is a huge male predominant thing is because a lot of those kinds of people that are attracted by that in part of the Warhammer community also tend to also have very sexist kind of bad views, and so then when women try to get into it, and if they get
uncomfortable,
they get uncomfortable by those people, and so then they get back off. But there are those rare circumstances where whether somebody who's female doesn't really care and they're able to enjoy it anyways, or they aren't introduced, like they're just not
or they do it on their own and they don't participate in those.
Exactly.
Because you know what's really fascinating, you look at these cultures, because like, okay, I told my mom whenever I was like 13, oh yeah, my friends are coming over for D&D, and she knew what D&D was. My uncle played D&D extensively, but he played D&D back whenever in a small rural town. He was literally the stereotypical nerd bullied kid, like straight up pushing lockers and stuff. You know, they grew out of that because he did really good on the test, and like his whole school was like, yeah, let's go. But you know, D&D used to be a thing social pariahs did.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, my friends are coming over. Elijah Woodman, Landon Inman, and then Genevieve Young. She's like, what? A woman playing Dungeons and Dragons? She looked around. She's like, you know, she looked at me suspiciously. She just didn't believe it. But the thing that's been really interesting in the past 5-8 years with D&D, which used to be a boys' club, very much so.
Yeah.
Like, you look at D&D now, look at the D&D TikTok community.
Yeah.
It is straight up rainbow. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
It's an amazing thing that happened.
Yeah.
And no small part of that was it was a slow, concerted effort of people who played it on their own time, slowly with social media being able to express that they've done that. And it's happening to Warhammer, too.
Yeah.
Because Warhammer's a badass hobby.
Oh, yeah.
It's just happening slower than others.
It's just because it's really hard to. It's like
yeah.
It's like that bad part of the community. It was like an infection that they never took care of, and then now that it's grown as big as it is, to a point where I would like to say that it's consumed the majority of the community of Warhammer. It's really hard to move out of that. It's really hard to get rid of that.
And that's like D&D specifically is what made me wonder, because you know generally like when we're talking about like a social sphere, we see like women as more creative and more inventive. At least that's what I've been raised to think. They're the ones who are better at visualizing things, and so I was surprised when D&D like came off of this as very male dominant thing, and that slowly gone away.
You know, it used to be a war game.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. Like they have done like psychological like tests and just like studies and stuff, and they have seen a trend of males preferring hobbies or games that are more aggressive, more geared towards things like war. In history, whereas women are more geared, generally, of course, it's all a spectrum, toward things that are more about creativity, inventiveness, or upkeep, even not like chores, but like almost every gamer girl I know loves The Sims. Almost every single one.
Freaking Brett loves The Sims. Yeah.
Like I don't mean to be sexist, but like it's
there's
interesting.
There's definitely a trend there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the stereotype is Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, and The Sims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I definitely think, because I think part of it is you only know what you know. It's like, why did Randy play those games I was talking about, Halo, that sort of shit, which are traditionally boys' games? It's because her dad played them with her.
Yeah, and I feel like that.
It's like, what are you shown? What are you given?
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like that's like the big thing is, why a lot of these stereotypes tend to be kind of true, and it's just because
people reinforce them.
And it's like you grow up, and it's like, what do I want to play? And someone's like, looking at you like, try Sims.
Exactly.
And it's like that's how it works, and then it brews from that, and then dependent on if you grew up in an area that was like easily connected with like internet and like the community of like different communities and cultures, then you start as you grow up, you start hopping around and you start like sticking to certain things, and it just happens to be that a lot of people tend to like direct others to certain stereotypes because they're stereotypes. Yeah.
But it's definitely it's interesting. You look at because I've read an article about this. Is that D&D is definitely opened up to basically all communities and such. But oddly enough, one of the reasons that like the broader role playing community is kind of still like there are games that are still definitely like boy dominated. Like you don't see it's definitely expanding especially ever since the drama with the D&D gaming license thing happened.
Oh yeah.
But you never saw somebody playing if you saw somebody playing like the Warhammer RPG, for example. I know it's kind of on the nose of our previous conversation, but like it was mostly male dominated. And I think it's really cool that this expanding horizon is happening because in the same vein, because we're talking about how women don't do they're stereotypically play these games. Stereotypically, men only played Call of Duty and Halo and shit. And it's like getting them into the other stuff too. It's like everyone being holistically into whatever they think is fun and having their toes in everything is probably the best outcome.
Well, and it reminds me of like this interview that Robin Walker told me about with EA, where they were interviewing them about Portal, and they were talking. Some EA executive or EA journalist came up to Robin and was like, "So we're looking at Portal, and we're trying to figure out the market for it, the target market, and it seems like you're making a game that will largely cater to so young adult females." And Robin's like, "No, we're making a game that's supposed to cater to everyone. Screw off."
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, they released Portal, and the majority of Portal play, they looked at what games were in the libraries of all Portal players, and the most commonly shared game among Portal players was Counter-Strike, which was a male-dominated game at the time because this was back in 2007.
Yeah.
Well, in the broader gaming industry, like we talk about these trends, but it used to be that guys play video games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Now that's never really truly been the case, but it's just been the stereotype that boys play video games and the girls got the dollhouse, right? That was the stereotype.
Yeah.
But the truth is, and one of my favorite things, I forget her name, but there's this famous actress. She's older now, but it's like somebody walked out, they had an interview. So what's your favorite game? Is it The Sims? And she's like, fuck no, it's Street Fighter. Street Fighter 2 Ultra, dude.
Well, and that's something I think is interesting too, because like beyond the difference in sexes, like I think more and more age groups are getting introduced to games nowadays, especially with the Wii. I think the Wii did a whole lot.
Oh yeah.
Introduced is not necessarily a fair term, I think, because we were just talking earlier about like how getting older we have less time for games, but we keep it in our lives because we grew up with it, right? Well, my grandpa, the Vietnam War vet, would sit down and play Doom. That like they got Doom from my dad, and he's like, "Oh, I like this game." He'd sit down and play it.
Yeah, no, it blew my mind. My mom played Super Mario on the Super Nintendo, like the original Super Nintendo when it came out, and I'm like, what? Because like my mom is very very reserved, conservative kind of type that doesn't really like much things of entertainment. She just kind of works and then drinks wine and goes and like her life has nothing ever revolved around video games. But apparently, whenever Nintendo's entertainment system came out and she was raising my brother Thomas, he was like, I want a Nintendo system, and it was brand new. There was never really a stereotype quite yet, and so they were like, eventually they saved up enough money, as poor as they were, and were able to afford one and got one. And apparently she used to play the original Super Mario Bros. And I'm like,
yeah, it just kind of blows your mind, these perspectives, because the thing is, we keep in our lives, and it's because it's kind of a core part of our identity. We like video games, we exist in the ecosystem. You guys are going into making video games.
yeah.
But like, how can you expect somebody who didn't grow up with it to really really kind of want to stick with it and keep that as their hobby?
Yeah.
It's like, my dad grew up with early Warhammer. Like he told me before, like how he would, he would like buy one miniature off his friend, and then he would make a cast of it, and then like make multiple duplicates of it to save money and shit like that. So he grew up with that, and so he maybe doesn't do it anymore, but like he could if he ever wanted to get back into it, he has that basis.
Yeah.
It's like if we stopped playing video games, but then wanted to go back to video games in our adulthood, it would make sense because we know what we would have to do. We'd have to learn the new stuff.
Yeah.
It would be like, I've done this before.
Oh, we just gotta get the meta legends,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just gotta get the new console, whatever it might be, and just stick it on my TV and play it.
Yeah. No.
Put it in my retinal virtual reality device.
No, I think one of the biggest things that parents should do whenever they raise their kids is to not if they want to get into something, don't. You can't do that. How about this dinosaur instead of the doll? Because when I was a little kid, as I was growing up, I actually kind of surprisingly, because of how my parents politically and other stuff is like they raised me kind of freely and let me do. When I was a little kid, I was into strawberry shortcake.
Yo, that's respect.
And that's like a very stereotypical girl thing. And eventually, my parents did try to wane me off of it. We had like a movie, like it was the movie we had on disc. Because what would happen is over the summer, I would just go into everything DVD and VHS we had, because we had all sides of a lot of VHSs too. And I just happened to run into that, and I just weirdly came attached to that. And so I was like introduced to a lot of things a lot of boys normally weren't growing up. And then once I grew up more and I got access to the internet and more cultures and what I was seeing as like what I should societally be into, I kind of blocked myself off a little bit.
Yeah, of course, because you want to fit in with the people you're around.
Yeah, and then it isn't until recently that I'm kind of like saying that's bullshit. And so like whenever I get questioned about something I don't like or something and I don't have anything to say, I'm like, I don't like that.
I've definitely found this about myself, like in fashion. You know, for a long time, you kind of pigeonhole yourself. Mm-hmm. And whenever I first worked at Men's Warehouse, it's not that I didn't care about fashion, but it wasn't any sort of a priority of mine. But I slowly came to realize that I've always cared about it. I really have always cared about the way I look, even if I didn't realize it. Like, I've always planned my outfits. I just didn't have shit to plan my outfits with.
Yeah.
You know, I remember, like, the first day of school every day, I'd put together my outfit the night before, and with my loaded option of shoes and such, and I'd try to make sure it worked. And then, like, when I was sitting at work one day, I'm like, why don't I spend more money on clothes? I like clothes.
Yeah.
It's because, men aren't supposed to, they're not supposed to be into fashion. They're not supposed to like clothing. Fuck that. No,
yeah.
I love fashion. I would happily go on a shopping trip and to blow so much fucking money. I just don't. Mostly because I have a good discount. I only shop in one place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But just kind of removing yourselves from these archetypes and then realizing that you're not the only person that's ever done that or the only person that ever will. Mm-hmm. There have always been men into fashion. There have always been men that have sewn dresses and shit. And not even like the traditional stereotype is like, oh, effeminate gay men. It's like, no, just any type of guy, any type of woman could do whatever the fuck they want. There's not really, at least in terms of interests, there shouldn't be any like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, of course not. And like something weird I've seen like in our culture nowadays is there seems to be like a two-sided coin of there's some people who they feel too pressure to conform to stereotypes, but there are also plenty of people who feel too much pressure to avoid stereotypes too.
That's fair.
It's really weird because I've noticed that with myself sometimes. I'm like, I like rock climbing now. That's cool. Wait, no, that's like a macho man thing. I don't want to be no macho man. I don't want to like this thing that like so many other dudes like. I don't want to fall into the trap of toxic like masculinity or something like that. And so I see myself like swerving between two ditches almost. Like,
it's so fascinating because I'm
careful.
On the lane of fashion, I'm playing Red Dead. I'm like, man, these guys dress cool. I've always kind of had this diversion against Western fashion because of what it's associated with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, no, it could be badass if it is. I want to get a pair of cowboy boots.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to get a slick pair of cowboy boots that I can just walk up and plug in. I want to get a cowboy hat too, and just like have that in the wardrobe and have that tool because it's not what it shouldn't be what it is. It should be what you make of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Like, I forgot what the quote exactly was, but it's like, you can view many things in our culture as a sort of mirror, and depending on the angle you hold it at, you can see different things in it, right? And so you got to be careful because it's not the mirror's fault for what it reflects back, it's whoever's holding it. And that's one thing that I think is interesting, because you have some, like, universities that are, like, putting in, like, what's essentially, like, language codes. Like, Stanford, luckily they repealed it, but they were trying to put in this language code for their programming department. And they had so many weird words, like you couldn't say cakewalk because if you go way back in time, it had some super obscure bad definition that no one knows it by nowadays. When you say cakewalk, you say, oh, it's just something easy, right? But apparently it had to do with some weird tradition where slave owners would hold parties for their slaves and make them like walk on cake or something like that, or some super weird thing like that.
It's really strange. Like words and these traditions that society holds, like they literally have as much power as we give them, but they also like have. It's like you have to acknowledge that different people have different values of the words and respect that.
Yeah.
But you also can't like just tread on glass around every word that has ever had a bad history. It's It's like, should we say the N-word? Obviously not.
Yeah.
Right. I think people who are like arguing for that sort of thing are kind of silly, but like there is something to be said. There's a middle ground in this conversation.
Yeah. Well, like really quick, what I hate is when like because I don't really swear. Maybe like once every couple of months or so. Once a blue moon, I will.
How adventurous.
How adventurous. Oh, yeah, it's daring today. I said PISS and didn't even flinch. But anyway, like, I'll have people, like, ask me, like, why don't you swear? And I'm like, well, I just don't. I don't think that's appropriate, and it's not something I like. And then they'll tell me, well, they're just words. I hate when people say that, because that means their speech is meaningless. The reason we use specific words is because they carry meaning with them. You don't use words unless you're trying to convey some kind of meaning, or you're speaking gibberish, or you're schizophrenic. But the whole point of words, the whole point of language is to convey and communicate meaning and context and ideas. And so if you're going to tell me that swear words are just words, then that means anytime you use them, your speech is completely meaningless, right? Like, I say I rarely use swear words because I will use them every now and then. If someone makes me extremely angry, they step away out of line, or if I'm in a tremendous amount of pain, I'll use a swear word. Because for me, that means that means just
the situation merits it.
Seed of emotion.
It's
right?
like I remember, John Rice in high school. Like, if I'd ever heard him swear, I know like the bombs are dropping or something.
No, that's actually a big thing that I've always like kind of thought about ever since like high school, was that I feel like people need to just respect whenever somebody doesn't like a certain word or phrase, and then on the other side, people just need to respect that sometimes people just don't know it, or just don't know that you specifically don't like that.
That's very fair.
And so it's like people just need to be more open-minded, and it's like, okay, if one person doesn't like a word, then just don't say that word around them. And then if someone around you says a word that you don't like, don't freak out. Just say, hey, I don't like that word. And then if they don't respect that,
that's a different situation.
Yeah. But if like they didn't know that, then just notify them, hey, I don't like that when you say that, and be like, all right.
There are words, to be fair, like it's like that culturally, like in our society, you kind of know you're not supposed to say. And you saying them, it's like, well, why are you doing it? Like the F slur, or like the N word, right?
Yeah.
Like you should just you're not supposed to say those things. But there are words, I agree with you, that like are kind of in that gray area.
Yeah. And
it's like I wouldn't curse around you. I try not to curse around you, for example.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. It's common decency.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a big part of it too is like decency and also showing respect. Like, you probably wouldn't swear around Grandma Lou.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah, because your relationship with her has a very certain structure. Like, that's why I'm fine with like workplaces saying, hey, don't say these words. We're trying to look professional, because I think not necessarily like policing language, but like having taboos and having certain policies for language is valuable, because it encourages people to be more careful with their speech and more purposeful and meaningful. Like, if I'm at home, I'll just speak like a caveman sometimes around my parents or like around my friends or something. Like, if I'm in a workplace environment, I'm trying to like sell something or pitch something or talk in a meeting, I want to try to be eloquent. I want to focus more on my speech. And by having these words that are very casual and sometimes have very crude definitions, with those words being limited or discouraged or whatever, I think it places a lot of emphasis on, hey, make sure you're being careful with what you say, and have an air of decency, professionalism, courtesy.
And see, that's actually something I was going to lead into was there is this like vocabulary of of what you should or should be able to, and what you can't say, just for being in a business or like being a celebrity, or just having somewhere where a lot of eyes are peering onto you. And that's also like the same reason why why we say like oh, we shouldn't say this. Like, hey man, you just shouldn't say it. And it's because there's so many people who just aren't okay with it. It's like you're really tempting fate by saying it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, if it's you and one other buddy and both of you don't care, then it's whatever. And I mean, like, it's whatever. But it's like, whenever you're in an open space, there is a great likely chance that you say that word, it's going to set some people off.
The phrase I've heard often is, freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence of other free persons.
Yeah.
Right? Freedom of speech means other people have the freedom of speech to criticize what you say. Because we said, words have meaning.
Yeah.
Words are not meaningless. So, and even if you don't mean a word a certain way, it's like if I were to say, I want to go get up, use the restroom, I'm not going to say, I want to go use the microwave. Like, you kind of go what I mean? You're not going to, if you say something, it has a dictionary meaning that other people assign to it, whether based on the actual definition or the societal meaning of the word. I just think it's really interesting that people try and make, because to try and make this, like, it's like no one is free from consequence.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's actually a big thing with, like, I hear a lot of, like, I hear a lot of people who are people who are against this whole, like, restriction of how, like, what you should and shouldn't say. They're all like, all these celebrities, they're so, like, they're so PG and they don't care,
Artificial
or they all artificial and stuff, and it's like, yeah, it's not because we're trying to outban certain ways of life or anything. It's just that they have so many people watching them, and they don't want to risk. They just don't want to take that risk of offending a shit ton of people, because if they do that, then they lose the eyes, they lose the profit, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Whenever your career is being liked, you don't want to be disliked. You want to be as liked, marketable as possible. That
Exactly.
makes sense.
And and people have a problem with that, but it's like that's not bad. Like
It's not inherently bad, not at all. It's like you shouldn't expect public figures to speak candidly. Like, you shouldn't expect them to speak like you're speaking in the privacy of your own home whenever they're on television.
Yeah, and
I'm going to stretch real quick up here.
Alright, go for it.
You guys can continue talking.
Ooh.
oh, you got anything to say about
No. No, I have nothing to say about it. Anything more? No, not really, because I think you nailed it on the head. Like, right? You know, some people will criticize others, you know, courtesy. Because that's why, like, as a public figure, you hold your language back, because you don't want to offend people. You don't want to get into unnecessary trouble. You want to show that you care about your audience, right? Some people say, oh, well, they aren't relatable because they don't say swear words. I'm like, that's stupid, because there are plenty of people who watch like the movies or shows or whatever this person's in, and plenty of those people would like have a heart attack if they heard them swear, right? Like so many people will like laugh when they see like a video of Tom Kenny, voice actor for SpongeBob, swearing, and then I'm like, well, yeah, it's sort of funny and novel, but like I'm really glad he doesn't do that in the show, because like I wouldn't want you know lots of kids being exposed to these kinds of words. And like that's another thing. I think it's interesting how some people are mad about parents not wanting their kids swearing, and I'm like, well, it's because you want the kids to recognize that they are being provided for, and to show courtesy because of that. And so like, while some parents do take it too far and like become like totalitarian, I don't like it when parents let their kids swear, especially when parents swear at their kids. I was playing mini golf the other day. I was playing mini golf the other day, and there was like this big burly man, like got on his knee with like his 5-year-old or something, 5-year-old daughter, and just started swearing at her.
Oh, really?
And I was like,
what the hell?
like, not only is he like bending the knee and swearing it then, but he's doing it when the girl's so young. Because like usually parents get down like to level with kids, right? And so when you're swearing like that, you're portraying yourself as their equal while swearing at them.
Yeah, you're not only just swearing at them, demeaning them like that. You're making it super personal.
Yeah, and I think it's just messed up, because if kids want to swear like once they're out of the house and stuff, like that's fine. And if they want to swear at their friends, like I can't control that as a parent. I would rather my kids not, but I know I can't control it. But like if they swear at me, I'm like, no, right? I'm not asking you to not say those words because I love having a power hold on you. Yeah. I'm saying that because I'm providing for you, and I don't like hearing that from someone I'm providing for.
Yeah, and for me, I would like if I ever were to have a kid, I would like to teach them not to swear like growing up, just to like up to a certain age, so they learn to have that filter to be able to not say certain words as easily, like super easily, so they don't have a struggle trying to do it when they get older. But once I get to a certain age, it's like for me and my girlfriend, like we wouldn't care. It's like, 'cause we don't put such a thing, such a big thing behind the word. So it's
and even if you do put a big emphasis on it, like my parents like were shocked to hear, and I don't know why they were shocked. They were shocked to hear that by the time I hit middle school. Granted, I was going to Central High for their middle school program, but I was surrounded by swearing constantly, and they were like, "Oh no, that's so bad." And I'm like, it's just how they are. I'm not gonna let that rub off onto me, because I agree with my parents that I shouldn't use those words. But like, you shouldn't be surprised if your kid, if you find out that your kid swears when like they're around other kids, because like they're just constantly surrounded by that. It's a different level of socialization.
Yeah. Something I was actually meaning to mention about the previous topic about like the genders and like stereotype and stuff, and it was something I mentioned to Justin about a point that I wanted to bring up, is so obviously I love how late in today's society we're kind of bringing up a bit more of the issues that men are also dealing with being for being men,
especially mental health.
But there's one thing that has been happening recently. It's been like getting super popular within this movement that everyone just seems to unanimously agree on, that people that at least talk about the subject a lot. and I just don't get why they agree. Or like get why, but it just doesn't make any sense to say that it's a good thing. But I disagree, and I feel like it should be a bad thing, which is this whole idea of if you're in a relationship with the girl, then that girl shouldn't be able to hang out with anybody of the opposite sex. That is like that feels so dumb. And like I get it. Dumb. I get it from like a standpoint of with attractiveness.
Well, so here's
the reason why this blows my mind, because you would think a lot of people, when they probably hear this, they'll probably hear this as like, oh, those are all just people that are like the toxic people within the community. This doesn't, at this point, it doesn't seem like it. I'm seeing it from not just males, but I'm seeing it from females, and it's not just like people who are like conservative, but people who are like liberal as well. And it's like everyone that is within this movement is just almost unanimously agreed to for this. And I'm like, why? Because it's like, I get the trauma, like maybe if someone has trauma where they didn't have somebody, like they were dating somebody or married to somebody and they trusted them and they lost that trust. And then but then it's like, I don't know why you would want to be in a relationship with somebody if you couldn't trust them to do that. And it's like, if you can't trust anybody, then you shouldn't be in a relationship.
That's very fair.
And then you should try to learn to get past that trauma before you get into another relationship. And then, because like, let's say for instance, Randy hangs out with somebody,
mm-hmm.
and then that somebody ends up like kind of like starts being suspicious and not being trustful and like start trying to like make moves. Then you should be able to trust Randy to not make any not to make anything to progress of that. And if that person still keeps making moves, then you would trust Randy to cut it off from there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a line of trust. That's all it is. And if you can't trust that person, then why are you in a relationship with them?
Yeah. I think, you mentioned it a little bit in there, but it is true that the men's health community is unfortunately deeply kind of it's very adjacent and parallel and sometimes overlapped with like men's, like toxic masculine groups like Andrew Tate and such.
Yeah. And
this group has a very conservative, reactionary social like stint. Yeah. And the idea is for a lot of more socially conservative-minded people, that sex is this thing that you just can't control, that it just overcomes you, and that you have no power over it, and that is
bullshit. Absolute bullshit.
It's just absolute bullshit. It is not some magic spell compulsion power, and if it is, then you're weak-willed.
Yeah.
Or if you're trained to think it's some sort of magic compulsion power, maybe you treat it as such. But the truth is, people can control their urges. Yeah. Men can, women can, and if they can't, that's a character flaw, not a fundamental part of their pieces of they are human beings.
Yeah. It's just like somebody like restraining themselves from eating a sugary cookie when they shouldn't.
Yeah, it's very similar, and maybe one feeling is more powerful than the other. But it's like at the same time, it's like your mind is the ultimate arbiter of your actions.
Yeah, and
there are times where your mind can be clouded. Like drugs can do that, and certain physical states can do that. It's true, and you're not always like your decisions are not always free from influence. But your partner, you should certainly trust in their capability to do that. And on your point about that, it's like, I think a lot of people just, because I think I forget where I had this conversation, but there's just this very big lack of understanding between the sexes. Like, I think men assume women understand more than they do, but the fact is, men don't know anything about fucking women, and women don't know anything about fucking men, because they never really have these open dialogues. Yeah. Right? They really never have these conversations, or at least a lot of people avoid them and don't. Yeah. I think our group has actually been really good about that.
I would agree.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because we actually talk to women. What's happening? And I just think it's helped a lot. And of course, I'm not going to say we know everything about them, but because I think the two truths I hold are, one, that we're all human and we're fundamentally the same, and the differences are more minor than major, and two, you're the ultimate arbiter of your decisions, and I agree that you should trust another person. If you don't, that's like a mark against yourself.
Well, there's a mark against yourself and maybe the other person, but like either way, like whoever's mark it is against, you shouldn't trust. Like you should just break up if you can't trust.
Yeah, that's it.
Bear in mind, I fully agree with you on this. It's wild that people are like going like ultra conservative on like your girlfriend shouldn't be hanging out by herself with like other dudes. I think that is kind of crazy. But to play devil's advocate and to try and understand why so many people are reacting like this, like one thing I can see is, especially in the beginning stages of a relationship, like trust shouldn't be a thing handed out freely. It should be a thing that's slowly built up. And I also see like in the Christian space, and I know I said on the way up here I didn't want to talk too much about theology, but this isn't really theology. It's just like kind of tradition, right? And morals. Like in the Christian space, we talk a lot about, it's like, don't set yourself up for unnecessary risk. Don't take on unnecessary risk. So it's like, you'd probably be fine, hanging out alone with some other female that, you weren't committed to, but you never know what could come over you. And I get that, I understand that, but I think that shows a huge lack of trust in both the other person, but also in yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
So.
And I think that's a very defeating thing, not just for you, but for your partner in that relationship. And I understand, being very risk averse in the beginning of a relationship because before you're truly committed, when you first start dating, you're not committed yet, right? At least you shouldn't be, in my mind. And so there's still a big risk of, is this going to pan out or is it not? I need to be careful. I need to tread lightly. But then as you spend more time with each other, as you get more comfortable around each other, then you can start investing that trust.
Yeah, exactly.
And opening up. And so while I agree with the sentiment that, if they're constantly hanging out with the same male friends at the beginning of a relationship, I can see someone being concerned. But that is a very specific case, and that's also something that will not last with time. And in a truly healthy relationship, if there's any chance of that relationship taking off, then there should be no problem with a girl hanging out with a specific other guy or something, right? Because say I start dating someone and then 4 weeks later, this person I was dating dumps me for some other guy. It's well, I'm not going to be mad at her for hanging out with that other guy because it's clear that they had more going for them than we had going for it.
It's because it's all very circumstantial. It's if I was married to somebody for 5 years and I discovered they were hanging out with somebody in the privacy of it's are they telling you about it? That sort of stuff. It's all very circumstantial. So I can understand maybe where some people are coming from, but at the same time, it's also you should never consign hard rules to things. But I think as a general rule of thumb, it's you can't let your partner exist in a space where you distrust them.
Yeah. Really quick, rule of thumb was something on that list of things you can't say at Stanford.
Really?
Do you know the origin of that phrase?
No.
It used to be some old rule in Britain where you were allowed to beat your wife with a stick that was no wider than your thumb, and that was known as the rule of thumb. If you were found beating your wife with a stick that was wider than a thumb, then you would be charged. But if it was thinner than your thumb, you'd be fine.
Man. Is that also that sounds like something that was also a thing for teachers in schools too, right?
It may have been.
Yeah.
I don't know because it was just a brief blurb on the
corporeal punishment was just much more of a thing.
Yeah. Man, imagine if someone like Andre the Giant lived in Britain at that time. It's this branch is thinner than my thumb.
I saw such a silly clip on YouTube Shorts earlier today, and I think it was from that show 1823 or something like that. But it was this guy. It was just one of those Western rootin' tootin' cowboy shows that the conservative culture are really into right now. And it was this guy and his wife walking down the street in a big city, and they're both cow folk. They're country folk. And they walk up and the salesman's hey, do you want to buy this washing machine? And the guy's so why is the washing machine so good? It seems silly. You're going to spend more money on it than the work it would save. And the wife doesn't say anything. And the first comment was, the guy should have said, yeah, my wife washes clothes perfectly fine at home. It just, society is so fucking whack.
Yeah. I have gotten a lot more respect, on that train of thought. I've gotten a lot more respect for the rural lifestyle, not necessarily the conservative one, but just living off the land. And because I was thinking about this earlier today, I'm a computer science major. I deal with computers all the time. I rely on them for so much. If we have a blackout, I'm screwed. I'm working on so many different levels and layers of abstraction in our society that if things fall apart, then I don't even know where John Rice lives, but I'm going to try to find where he lives and work on his farm.
Because I totally understand. That's I keep saying I'm playing Red Dead because I'm really enjoying it. But that's something I really appreciate out of it. It's you boil life down to some of its simpler parts. And one of the big themes of the game that I'll talk more about as I uncover them. But one of the big themes is, the West is dying, civilization is taking over. Civilization, and the main character has this idea that civilization sucks. And it's civilization means a lot of things. But it does definitely mean abstraction, like you talked about, and a removal from just what humans at a core need to survive. But it's also we wouldn't be alive today if society was still just hunting and gathering and farming and stuff. It's such an interesting conversation.
Have you heard of the Mouse Utopia experiments?
No,
I've heard about
They're
those.
very fascinating. And just to summarize, because like there's like a whole rabbit hole video you can watch about it. That's what I watched anyway. But basically, there's a psychologist who was like, I wonder if city living and urban life is like bad for people. I wonder if it literally drives them insane. Because, you know, when you're walking down the streets of New York and you see like the drug addicts and the homeless people and the people just like muttering to themselves and shaking their heads.
It's like GTA characters, but they're
Like, you get concerned. It's like, you know, is urban living having really drastic like negative psychological effects on us? And so they did these experiments with rats where like they gave them all the food and water they could need, very safe shelter. It was focused just on like the sociology of the rats and as the experiment went on, they had children and their population didn't get anywhere close to maximum capacity because at first the experimenters thought, overpopulation will get them eventually. No, that's not what happened. What happened was they started forming these very weird social structures where you'd have like a couple alphas who would breed a lot, and then you had like a lot of the beta males who would barely breed. You had a lot of the women who wouldn't even want to breed and would actively avoid the males because either they were predatory or they were ambivalent and didn't want to have children. And so very quickly, like there was like a huge explosion of population at the beginning, but over time it just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled because the social structure of those rats in that rat utopia became very apathetic. They didn't want to hang out with each other. When they did hang out with each other, they rarely did it with people of the opposite sex. And then when they did, they rarely had successful offspring. And then when they did, they would half the time eat that offspring or kill it to like show some kind of display of power. And so it was really fascinating. And sometimes they wouldn't even kill the offspring. The rats would just give birth and wander away and not care at all. And they tried to see if this could be extended to humans. And so far, like, the jury's out on that. We don't know. Because humans seem to be avoiding a lot of the things that the rats were doing in the experiment. But it's still scary.
You know, you see similar trends, though, specifically in the population.
That's what I was thinking.
The more developed a society is, every developed society in the world right now is dealing with stagnating or declining birth rates.
Yeah.
Right? People aren't having kids. And you see a lot specifically, the more rights women have, the less likely they are to have babies. Understandably, everything I've heard about childbirth makes it seem like it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, what's weird is because like a lot of that is just like you have a lot of couples nowadays who are doing things like taking birth control or like because unlike the rats, they're still spending time together. Like we don't see huge divisions of women hanging out with each other and men hanging out with each other. Like obviously you have like boys groups and guy science and girl science and stuff, but nothing to scale what's going on with the rats. But what is very interesting is a lot of us are investing more time and energy into developing ourselves as opposed to having kids because we don't need to have kids.
Yeah.
As much as we did back in the day.
Because kids were free labor.
Yeah.
Like, that's like one of the biggest reasons people had children is because they were people that could help you. And they were your retirement plan.
Yeah, and if you planned it correctly, the cost of having the kid was less than the profit that they'd get from them.
Yes. And like I say the retirement plan because that's such a big thing everywhere. It's like you had kids out of a very selfish desire to make sure that you were taken care of in your old age. Like and a very practical desire too, because there would be a point where you couldn't do things. And then in our early hunter-gatherer societies, it was a very equal relationship where the older people minded young children, and the younger people gathered food for the society. Mm-hmm. But whenever you have it to where, because like what we're seeing right now, and very interestingly enough, is like especially in our society, being old is not venerated.
Yeah.
Being young is venerated.
Yeah.
Being our age is what is venerated. Being super young and being super old sucks. So why would you want to have a super young? Like I know so many people are like, I don't have kids. Kids fucking suck.
I hate that. I love kids.
I love kids too because kids are just humans. We're all children.
Yeah.
In a major way, we are just. I hear people say child of God or child of the universe. We are literally like we are no smarter. Like we know more
ancestors from like billions.
Yes.
Well, not billions. But like
we're not smarter. Like we know more things, but we're not smarter than the people that came before.
Yeah.
We know, and we're not like we are smarter than kids, but that's just because they're where we were at their time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, like because information is spreading faster and it's easier to access and stuff, and information is not intelligence and it's not wisdom, right? Yeah. And so it is very interesting. But like I don't know, because I want probably 3 kids, which is like enough to like see a steady growth in population. But so many people, like especially anti-natalism, is spreading a lot nowadays.
Anti-natalism, because it's like the idea you shouldn't bring kids in this world. it's like I don't mind the idea of 3 kids too, but I do have to acknowledge that like that is majorly because I have not been giving birth.
Yeah.
Right. Like something.
That's the thing though. Like most of the time, like after the experience of birth, like I've heard this from almost every like woman in my family who's given birth. Like one of the first things that they start saying is, "Can we have another?"
Well, part of it definitely
surprises me so much.
So because there's a big psychological stint in that, like. A lot, especially in more conservative-minded circles, it's like a lot of the and this is dying, of course. There's a reason we're seeing the declining birth rate, but a lot of the value of a woman was associated with having a kid, and a lot of parents, a lot of women sometimes have kids to validate themselves.
Yeah, I mean, because whenever it's just like a husband and a wife, a lot of people are. Back in the day, it was a lot of like the talk with the husband, and it's like, oh, what's the wife into? Or, like never like talked to the wife personally. And then once they had a child, the wife was involved, but it was all about the child. And then so like they, as the child, like once they gave birth to the child kind of grew up, and it was less about the woman taking care of the child, and it was more about the father taking care of the child. And it's like the woman wants
she wants to feel useful and productive.
She wants to feel useful and productive again. So then it's like let's have more children.
Yeah, very much so.
Man, now I'm thinking about Bluey because we're talking about like raising kids.
Yeah. I think
it's such a good show.
And I keep referencing because I definitely have this deep father. Like I want to be a good father, and I wanted to have kids. Mm-hmm. I was playing Red Dead recently, and you play literally this like he called himself a bad man, Arthur Morgan. He just a generic outlaw. There's a mission where you take the kid of the camp fishing. He's just such a good father figure. You know what I mean? It's so wholesome. Like man, I want to do that, and it was very positive. Like. Visage of masculinity, because obviously he also sometimes is the negative masculine stereotype because he's in the fucking Old West times. Yeah. But like, there's such because I do think that is something that is because I do genuinely think that I hesitate to say that femininity is venerated, but I do definitely think that masculinity is vilified.
Yeah.
Like at least in the traditional sense.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I do think that there's a lot of facets of that masculinity that need to be tackled and talked about. Like there is toxic masculinity. I do think it exists.
Yes.
No.
But I think there is positive masculinity too.
Yeah. It's just like how there's toxic femininity, but then there's
very
positive femininity.
Yeah. Yes. It's fat. It's like and it was unfortunate because I heard this one fantastic comedic bit. It's like this guy's like, I'm an ally. Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Give gay people rights. Yeah. Kill all men. Well. And then he's like, and then I turn to my left and I see the skinhead's going, buddy, I agree with you. And I'm like, you know what? Never mind, because it feels like as a guy, you have this weird, like right now, if you like, because you want to be an ally, you want to be good, you want to do that, and it's like you look over there, and it seems like the only other alternative is to be a fucking skinhead. Yeah. And it's like I'm obviously not that. I don't want to be that. I'm far from it. Yeah. But it can sometimes be, and I don't necessarily feel like this in my circle of friends, but I definitely feel like on a societal level, if I were like to go on Twitter and say stuff like that, I'd get. And the people who would agree with me, I wouldn't want them to agree with me.
It's not called Twitter anymore. It's called X.
It's really?
Like what? It's called what?
For real?
X.com. Have you seen? It's like so recent. It happened like yesterday or overnight. But yeah.
I haven't heard anything about.
Open your phone. Open your phone right now. And go to Twitter.
Oh, my Twitter. No! I uninstalled Twitter because.
No, just go to the website.
Just go to the website.
Oh, I was gonna go to the Play Store and look it up on the Play Store.
No. Go to the website right now. It's hilarious. I'm convinced that Elon Musk is just trolling.
Go to the website.
We'll go to the actual.
Because there might be a transitionary phase.
Oh my god!
It's probably in a transitionary phase.
It's transitioning.
And they're gonna use the old URL because that's how people know how to access
it. It's just what?
That's so silly.
It's just an X because Elon Musk got to start with X.com, which became PayPal. And
that goes to a whole other thing with the logos that I've mentioned before. The whole simplification of logos.
I hate it.
Some people, some companies are really cool about it, and I kind of like some of it. But there are most of it is really just But the reason why they do it, you want to know the reason why they do it?
It's easier to remember.
It's not just easier to remember, but they want you to be able to think about it from seeing as little as possible. So like they want you, like for Google, all you got to see is blue, yellow, and red in a certain pattern, and you're like Google. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that's what they want. That's what they're shooting for. So now he's like this X. It's like all you got to see is an X by itself, and
it makes sense on one hand, but if it's so simple, then literally anything could remind you of anything else at the same time. Like all someone has to do is make another logo that's red, green, and yellow and blue, and yeah, right. And so My opinion on minimalism is I think it is getting kicked out the door. I've seen some sites updating their logos and stuff to be a bit more colorful or have gradients and stuff like that. And I hope that trend continues, because the very like, just strict minimalism that we had in the late 2010s and early 2020s is just like, people are sick of it because it's not expressive. It's watered down, it's diluted. And
it's not even like cool dystopia.
It's the whole point of the business, though.
It's the boring dystopia that we live in.
Boring dystopia.
Well, it's because like it's the whole idea is like, it's the businessman going too far into the business, and it could be the whole argument of capitalism and stuff.
Oh, capitalism is inherently flawed.
Oh yeah,
I don't have a solution.
Well, no, but I'm saying that like it could be the argument that it's because of capitalism, but that like businesses are like they're at the end of the day a business, and if at any point they have to sacrifice creativity for profit, they will.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's exactly what this is.
Because here's the thing, like capitalism, and I don't want to get into that for now because we have been at it for like an hour and a half, I think.
A while.
So I do think
yeah.
I want to cut it off soon because I didn't even get home this far back. But I do want to talk about capitalism because I think put a synopsis on what I've been thinking recently is like Marx was basically entirely right in identifying the root issue. Capitalism is based around the idea that bar graphs go up, or like line graph go up. Just go up, and then you buy low and sell high, and everyone's rich all the time. But the problem is that the graph can't infinitely go up.
Yeah.
It physically can't, in a very real sense. Like in my company, Men's Warehouse, it's like, okay, so they start stagnating, but even before COVID, and they really start crashing during COVID. How do you increase? Like, you can expand in a corporation. You can expand horizontally, and you can expand vertically. If you expand horizontally, it means opening new stores, hiring more staff, getting more stock. But once you get 1,000 stores in every major metropolitan area in the country, it's like, where do you expand from there?
Well, see,
how do you grow?
Here's the thing with like someone actually kind of like mentioned something like this, and I made me go down this rabbit hole. But when you think about capitalism and it's like how it works, unless everyone is stagnant in terms of profit, which is just socialism, for one to go up, one has to go down. And the problem, and the big problem with capitalism right now is that there are so few, or there's a couple of few who are so high up that there's nothing for people to go any higher. And so now there's like this huge, like there's the whole disparity of like the super rich and the super poor.
What's funny is you're actually wrong about how when 1% has to go down because people can go out and procure more resources and stuff like that. But then that's still the problem, because if everyone's trying to go up, then either someone else is going down or the pool of resources isn't going
exactly,
and
then it loses value.
Yeah.
So then it's like, for capitalism to work, there has to be a stagnation balance, or there has to be a not nearly as much of a disparity as there is now.
Really quick, I see capitalism in its most ideal form as almost like, this is going to sound weird, a very weird comparison, but almost like football seasons. Because football, it's competitive. There are winners and losers, and they're going at it, and they're cycling through each other. Everyone's kind of competing against each other and playing some kind of role. You have all the different players on the team suiting some kind of roles, and they're all competing against everyone else on the other team in different ways. Yada, yada, yada. But the biggest thing about the NFL is it has seasons. There are times where the competition kind of levels off, it resets, and you go back to the basics, and someone else has a chance to rise to the top. Someone else has a chance. Someone else has a chance. So I think it's not, in its ideal form, capitalism becomes this thing where there is like this overall pool of wealth that stays about the same size, and people can, in different ways, take up bigger parts of that pie chart. Mm-hmm. So it's less about seeing the bar graph go up and more about keeping the bar graph as high as you can.
So like the issue is with capitalism that it cultivates a society about seeing your net worth increase. And if you look at like the wealthiest people, right, there theoretically are finite resources in the state, in the country, in the world. Like, we haven't necessarily reached that yet, but there are. And we certainly maybe reached the portion in certain ways in certain industries where, like in any real sense, you can't expand anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens whenever a rich person who can't take up more of, like, the theoretical finite resources wants to grow their wealth? They take up more of the pie chart.
Yeah.
Looking at football, right? It's like, okay, sure, it's theoretically equal, but it's not. Because, some teams have these players and have more money to spend and have better franchises, more prestigious franchises that players want to get into. And then some teams, even though everyone in football is the best of the best, from what my stepdad has told me, there are still teams that fucking suck every year.
Browns.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like they suck all the time, and that's because it's not equal.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it should be equal. I mean, maybe in a competitive sport it should be, because that's more fun. that have wild cards and stuff. But like, and certainly you should have. It's like there should be some variety of equity in our society. But what's happening right now is that since the very wealthy can't just get more wealth with the middle and lower class, they're getting more wealth from the middle and lower class.
And that's the thing
They're
is
siphoning.
I feel like at this point with capitalism, if we're going to keep capitalism, I feel like what should happen is if somebody ends up skyrocketing in profit somehow, or like it gets to this point,
They get the infinite money glitch.
they get the infinite money glitch.
Yeah.
And obviously this sounds pretty obvious. It's just donations, but it should then get to even it out for everyone else. You should start trickling it down for everyone.
Well, see,
and that's the thing though, is that like you could be like, oh, well, donations, oh, paying employees, that's trickling it down, and it's like, yes, but if you ever look at the profits, they're not going down. Like their actual net value isn't going down because there should be a point where the net value going down is okay.
Yeah,
and that's exactly where people like Elon Musk and all the other tech billionaires are. It's like it should be. They're at a point now where them going net value down, as long as it's going down to the community, should be okay. But no, in fact, instead, every year until Elon Musk doesn't count anymore because Elon Musk bought Twitter. They just keep going up.
Well, this, speaking of like an NFL analogy, this brings me back to one of the most fascinating parts of football that I didn't really understand, and I still don't understand until somewhat recently. But the trade, so fascinating because you have people like, say, the Chiefs. They traded Tyreek Hill, which is like the #1 wide receiver.
well, that's because he wanted to leave.
Amazing. Well, but they traded him. Everyone thought, oh, now the Chiefs are going to lose. But they only traded Hill because they thought they could build a stronger team.
Hill also wanted more money.
Well, but they thought they could build a stronger team with other people. And so that's what made them agree to do the trade, and yada, yada, yada. And so they do this. And then, to everyone's surprise, the Chiefs win this year's Super Bowl. And like a lot of the people on the Chiefs and a lot of Chiefs fans like made fun of everyone else, like saying, you didn't believe us because we lost that one guy. But we made this sort of trade because we thought, like I'm speaking as if I'm like the hiring staff for the Chiefs or whatever. We made this trade because we thought that by giving up some of our resources, we could procure resources that make us even stronger than we were before. And the reason billionaires get to where they are is because people buy into whatever most of the time. Sometimes like they have monopolies and people buy into them because they need to. But especially like in America and in urban areas, there's so much competition. The only way these companies get so big or these people get so big and resourceful is because we buy into them thinking they will somehow benefit our lives. We think they will give us a competitive edge somehow. Like people who pay for Twitter Blue, I think they're stupid, but they do it because they think they'll have a competitive edge when it comes to their marketing and their branding, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's very interesting because you do get these people who get to these crazy high points, and the only reason they do that is because they're really good at convincing people, I'll give you a competitive edge somehow.
So the truth is, too, like, passive income is talked about a lot. It's like, there is a point where if you have enough money, you're never going to be poor because your money makes you money.
Yes. Yeah.
And, like, Elon Musk. Oh, was he a self-made man? Fuck no. His parents
the emerald mining company
in South Africa. That's like the most evil place to own an emerald mine. That's literally like generic evil, like apartheid level shit,
Jeez.
right?
No.
So it's like it's like there's all this talk of competition and how you can be a self-made man, and they still do exist, but so far often it's less about being that gets bought into. It's like too big to fail. Big companies will buy more companies, will buy more companies, will buy more companies until there's no competition left. And suddenly they make all the money all the time.
Yeah, and like a lot of people will look at these like tech billionaires and it's be like, oh, we need like they're still like we still need them though because to progress. It's like at this point, no, we don't, because like if Elon Musk were to just die, he has no input on anything advancement wise. It is just businessman money.
So it's
and it's so like for instance like Starlink, the whole Starlink thing. He maybe he came up with the idea. He totally didn't.
He's not.
But he totally didn't. But he didn't make Starlink. He didn't do jack shit for Starlink. But it's his name under it, and it's him who's getting all the credit.
So real quick, I read a really interesting essay from the Foreign Affairs Journal, which I'm trying to read because I want to get into the foreign service. That was about innovation and how innovation is the future. And America has outsourced ever since the end of the Cold War. They're like, okay, we don't need innovation anymore. We beat the Soviets. Let's just hand it off to different companies. Nowadays, we exist in a world where we have to innovate or die. Look at the drones in Ukraine, right? War is not fought the same way. You have to innovate or die. And so there's a lot of talk, whenever we have these conversations, we often how do we get the money back into the hands of the people? We often avoid the simplest answer because Americans hate the fucking word taxes. The literal concept of taxes is a social contract. Mm-hmm. The idea is we give you our money and you provide us services and you provide us infrastructure and you provide us all the things we need to have happy lives as citizens. And oddly enough, we have this idea that the government is so incompetent they can never do it, but there are governments who do it.
Yeah.
Taxes are not inherently tyranny, especially whenever you consider the cost of living that we have anyway in a world where we have less taxes.
And that's the problem we have right now is that, taxes is not a bad thing. It's just that this country has weaponized it. Mm-hmm. And they like to keep it that way. The government and the people higher ups like to keep it weaponized from the common people and to not be like, oh, I don't like taxes. Because it takes your money away. Because a lot of the general person, they just see it as the yearly, they're taking our money away and they're not doing much with it. Mm-hmm. And it's and the thing is that it's mainly taxes should be mainly for the people who are the super wealthy, to taxes for the common people, for the government to then provide for the common people. But the thing is that the super rich people have avoided taxes.
And they've convinced people that, oh, no, we should, none of us should pay taxes.
Or we pay our taxes. It's Well,
it's really hard to pay taxes on perceived wealth because a lot of these big tech billionaires just have companies that are worth a lot of money, and so even if their net worth is in the billions, it's hard to be okay, give me this amount of money because people think your company is worth this much. So give me that. So it becomes so loosey goosey, and that's how they can dance around it so much.
The issue is the IRS knows exactly how much you're supposed to pay. Companies like Amazon, I think in 2018, Amazon paid $0 in taxes because they just play this game where people, since the government doesn't have regulations on it, Amazon is able to dance around state lines and be okay, I'll go put a plant here if you write off all of our taxes. And people do it because they want the jobs because it looks good for them. Mm. It's the issue is not that Jeff Bezos isn't paying his taxes. The issue is that Amazon is not paying his taxes. And the issue is that Amazon, I do want to podcast soon. This is another big conversation. I'm such a big pro-union guy. And a lot of older folks are anti-union, which is fucking crazy because the unions are the only reason that you could work in the coal mines and then buy a 2-story house. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the only reason that middle-class dream happened, because otherwise it wouldn't have. Unions don't exist today, and what do you see? You see companies abusing their workers, not giving them the hours they need, not wanting to provide them benefits. I went to an interview at the airport that was part-time expecting 20 hours. They're okay, you're basically going to work full-time hours. We just don't want to give you benefits because, if we say you're part-time, we don't have to give you benefits. And I'm that's fucking bullshit. Yeah. Right? It's just a really weird ecosystem we live in. And
very weird.
And it's the fact that the common people have been led to believe in certain things as these fundamental evils whenever they do nothing more than service them is crazy.
Well, and there is some pushback here because you have, especially with immigrants who will come from places from South America. You got Venezuela, Argentina, Chile, that have much more socialist policies with higher taxes and more government input onto the economy. There are some real dangers there, but I feel this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where you're avoiding one ditch and going to the other, right?
Well, the thing about those countries have not been given a fair shake for their policies to work. I mean, look at Venezuela. I think they implemented their socialist policies or whatever, and they had their leader, and we've had them under tariffs and shit for fucking forever now.
The biggest thing is they pinned their whole economy on their oil industry, and so when some of that fell through, it was just cascade domino effect. Mm-hmm. Because their leaders were all right, so we're gonna base our country's economy on oil because as a socialist country, we have been given the power to place a lot of importance on the oil industry. And so once the government gets a lot of oversight on the economy, then the success of the country is very dependent on the success of that country's economy and what happens there. And so that's where the risk starts coming in. But that's much more of a problem for smaller nations than it is for bigger
100%. Yeah. And you look at successful nations that have implemented social policy. Whenever I say socialist policy, I don't mean nationalize industry. I mean provide a social safety net based on the taxes you pay. I mean that people shouldn't be worried to call an ambulance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things we have these conversations about, well, that would lead to this and this, but the truth is that there are some fundamental things that people shouldn't worry about. Kids should be able to eat for free at school.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You shouldn't be worried about getting an ambulance. It should be a public service.
Oh, yeah.
The Postal Service does not need to turn a profit in the same way the military doesn't turn a profit. It's just there for the benefit of the people.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it should only turn as much of a profit as it is to develop it to keep it worthwhile. But after that, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be a worry that it's in the red because it's not a company.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, I think it's a conversation for next podcast though, because I do want to have some lunch.
Yeah.
I do too, and this was a very nice talk though.
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I think we're actually running out. Yeah, we are running out of battery. I noticed the screen got dimmer, but
Nah.
Pretty much that's why it ended.
thank you for coming on the cast, by the way.
Yes, of course.
Glad we finally had you because we've been planning to have you for like 4 or 5 months now. It's insane. But,
I mean, also like the fact that we've had a podcast for the first time in like 6 weeks or something. I mean, it's not
crazy.
6 weeks, but
I think this is episode 20, so
it's been let's go.
it's a good milestone.
For the 4 people that watch us, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We make a lot of money from this. In fact, we are sponsored today by Raid Shadow.
Logo right up there.
No, but it's like 20 different sponsorships. It's covers the entire screen.
I would not mind if we got like sponsored for some weird reason.
Man,
That would be so
I love when I see like a small YouTuber have some fringe sponsorship. It's like, oh, today I'm sponsored by those weird rubber toys that you turn inside out and then hop on. It's like, what?
I mean, it works.
I mean, as long as you're getting money.
Yeah.
Again, taking money from the
Capitalism.
It's a really weird sponsorship I've seen a few times from smaller YouTubers. That art investment sponsorship, you heard about that? Where it's like, the economy fluctuates, but art's value remains constant. And I'm like,
That's lame. Yeah, no.
Liquidating.
Birch Gold Group.
Finances. I do want to have another conversation about capitalism and finances because it's so fucking weird.
It's whole, like, any economy is just objectively extremely weird.
Well, it's just like this,
It's
like,
so weird.
do you see that South Park episode where it's like, how does the Fed respond to the economic crisis? They chop off a chicken's head and it runs around a circle, and wherever it stops in the circle is what they do. I love that. I'll have to pull it up something.
You know how I respond to economic crisis?
Investing in Bitcoin.
Oh,
Yeah. Hey, believe in the blockchain.
the blockchain. You know what? I'm just gonna transfer all my fun into Bitcoin right now.